Okay, so this video is about politics and politicians and how they use us and our emotions to get what they want. And I have a little example here. I hope it makes sense to you. Okay, so my example is about women who always find the wrong man. So they receive love bombs, and these love bombs are like traps. They become trapped in their own emotions. They sort of fall in love with themselves because they fall in love with the feeling they get from these love bombs. So when things get really bad in a relationship with these women who fall in love with these wrong men, they suffer through it until the person starts abusing them to the point that they can no longer suffer, that the suffering isn't worth whatever benefit they get, the love bombs and stuff, the feeling and the emotions. So they reach a precipice and they can no longer suffer because the suffering has become insufferable. It's oftentimes a do or die situation that occurs when someone changes. Someone, a friend perhaps, tell them, if you don't leave, he'll end up killing you. Now I'm just talking about one example, a man and a woman, and there can be different types of relationships and stuff. So if they're smart, this woman who fell in love with this man who love bombed her in the beginning and aroused all these emotions in her, she sort of fell in love with herself because she fell in love with the feeling that he gave her. But then he started abusing her, and she began suffering from the abuse, but she suffered through it until it was just not worth it anymore. And someone approaches them and says, well, you know, if you don't leave, he'll end up killing you. So if she's smart, she'll leave. But usually it's when they can suffer just no more, where it's so obvious that they've lost so much in themselves, and those feelings, those emotions, those love bombing emotions aren't there anymore. That's when they decide maybe they'll leave. So politics isn't much different. Every few years we get love bombed. We fall in love with an emotional state that politicians arise within ourselves and us. And so we sort of fall in love with ourselves, and we fall in love with our emotional state that we are in when the politicians start love bombing us. We fall in love with the lies because they feel good. Everything's going to be better. We fall in love with ideas. We will drain the swamp. After a long war, we fall in love with promises. We'll end the Vietnam War and bring our boys home. Or more recently, the war in Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. We fall in love with a better economy, a better future for our children, more wealth, so on and so forth. Just like the woman who falls in love with the love bombs and stay while being abused, we don't leave either. We don't catch on. We suffer through it with hopes and dreams of the next election bringing better things to us. Unlike the woman who loves being in love, or like the woman who loves being in love, we're caught in a cycle. We only have to wait a few years and we get a new president, a new senator, a new representative, a new governor, mayor, sheriff, and so on. The abuser's out. The next person love bombs us, idea bombs us, future bombs us, promise bombs us, and we fall in love. Just like the woman, we choose our new man, our new woman. We made a choice and we believe that makes it okay because we chose it. but nothing really ever changes. They still lie, they still cheat, they launder money, they tax us, overtax us. They still make more laws for us that it's impossible not to break, use us and our emotions, and they know we'll suffer through it if they give us just enough to keep us hanging on, just enough hope. Like in the movie The Earth Stood Still, people will not change until they have no choice but to change. They change at the precipice. But for us, the precipice never comes. And so the change never comes because they continue to give us just enough hope for a better, bigger, brighter future. Just have to work a little longer, a little harder. Soon we'll reap the benefits. And 200 years later, here we are. People are lazy. They don't want to change. Most are addicts. They love the love bombs. They love the promises, the feeling of hope, a brighter future, and so on. Lazy people. They want to continue on with things the same. Change seems to be an unnatural thing for a lot of humans. Robert Greene says in his book, The Laws of Human Nature, we imagine that we understand quite well the people we deal with. Life can be harsh, and we have too many other tasks to attend to. We are lazy and prefer to rely on predigested judgments. Most people do not want to expend the effort that goes into thinking about others and figuring out a strategic entry past their defenses. They're lazy. They want to simply be themselves, speak honestly, and do nothing, and justify this to themselves as stemming from some great moral choice. The father would thunder back that Anton was lazy by nature, and only through hard work could he become a respectable citizen. People who are lazy and undisciplined are much more prone to the feeling of envy. And those were Robert Greene quotes. They change when they have no choice but to change. Thomas Jefferson knew this. He knew that people are basically lazy. They don't like change. He wrote this in the Declaration of Independence. His theory's been tested. It's no longer a theory. It's quite well known. People will continue to suffer as long as suffering is sufferable. They won't change. They won't change their government so long as suffering under it is sufferable. But we know people change when they are given no choice but to change. When they must change or die, change or lose everything. At that point, there's no option. They cannot continue to be lazy because they can no longer suffer. There's no longer suffering to be had. The worst has come, and it's time to pack our things and leave. I don't mean really leave. This is our place. We have nowhere to go. This is our country, built by our ancestors. I mean, it's time to leave suffering. It's time to say goodbye to the abuser, whether they're governments or men or governments of men. I don't mean that we need to place an all or only women in those positions. I don't mean we need to replace all the men with women. I mean that it's time to change. It's time to put new people in with different personalities. A personality that does not include those who abuse its people. It's time to understand the Constitution and the state republics and commonwealths and get back to those ideas instead of this fictional legal state, this state of abuse. Get back to them and return to a state where the people no longer suffer, at least not at the hands of individual or group political abusers, the wealthy and their friends. At the precipice, suffering is at its worst, but why wait until the precipice? Why not change now before we get to that point? You think most politicians are narcissists? Or at least some of them are? That they love to act and be in front of the camera? I think they are. They're our abuser.